Two women fell in love under the spotlight, hid it from the world, and in the moment they had everything to lose, they chose each other anyway. A long, gleaming conference table dominated the room, surrounded by the film's director, producers, and senior executives. At its head sat Camille Hale, her posture flawless, her expression carefully sealed. Years in the industry had trained her for moments like this. Meetings always followed the same script: formal greetings, polite exchanges, and then the revelation. Today, it was her co-star. This project was no ordinary film. It was an adaptation of one of the most cherished romance novels ever written, a story with a fiercely loyal audience that would dissect every frame. Camille had committed to it months ago, choosing it with precision as her next step. She expected artistry, emotional depth, and above all, a partner who matched her discipline and intensity, someone who took the craft as seriously as she did. The director, celebrated for his sweeping and emotionally charged films, leaned forward with a bright, anticipatory smile. He spoke with theatrical excitement, building the moment until the room seemed to hold its breath. Camille responded with a small, controlled nod, her face betraying nothing. 15 years of experience had taught her how to remain composed even as a quiet tension crept beneath her calm. She had fought relentlessly to reach this level. The director's smile widened further as he mentioned that the co-star would arrive shortly. The conference room door burst open, and the atmosphere shifted instantly. Lana Monroe entered with effortless confidence, her presence vibrant and unrestrained. She wore casual luxury with ease, jeans that spoke of quiet expense and a silk blouse casually undone at the collar. Her apology for being late carried no weight of guilt, only charm. She spoke lightly about traffic and an encounter with an adoring fan, as if the delay were part of an amusing story. Camille's fingers tightened subtly around her glass of water. To her, professionalism meant punctuality, preparation, and respect. Lana seemed to operate by an entirely different set of rules. Lana's attention turned fully to Camille, her smile dazzling, her energy warm. She extended her hand with genuine enthusiasm, expressing admiration that sounded sincere rather than rehearsed. Camille rose and accepted the gesture, her own response measured and polished. Lana's grip was confident and real, disarmingly so. Camille welcomed her with formal courtesy, her tone impeccable. Lana dismissed the formality with ease, insisting on familiarity and playfully reminding her that they would be portraying lovers for months. The wink that followed only deepened Camille's growing irritation, a dull ache forming behind her eye. Camille responded with precision, each word deliberate, her voice cool and controlled. Lana, unaffected by the subtle frost, overflowed with excitement. She spoke about rereading the novel, about ideas and character dynamics, her enthusiasm spilling forward without restraint. She suggested meeting later to talk more, eager to connect. Camille declined smoothly, citing a full schedule, her refusal wrapped in politeness but unmistakably firm. Lana accepted it without hesitation, her energy undimmed, already shifting to her next obligation. With a cheerful farewell, she exited as quickly as she had arrived, leaving behind a silence that felt almost hollow. For a moment, no one spoke. The air settled. Camille's gaze shifted sharply to the director, her composure finally edged with steel. She spoke with controlled intensity, her words cutting through the quiet. She had spent years earning roles like this, dedicating herself fully to her craft, and now she was expected to share it with someone she viewed as untested and careless. Her voice hardened as she continued, expressing her doubts with precision. She believed Lana lacked the understanding this story demanded, that her presence would reduce something meaningful into spectacle. Her frustration sharpened further as she listed examples of unprofessional behavior, her tone unwavering, her conviction absolute. The director interrupted, firm but calm, meeting her resistance without retreat. He spoke of contrast rather than conflict, her discipline paired with Lana's spontaneity, her technical mastery balanced by instinct. Together, he insisted, they could create something remarkable. Camille countered with a quiet warning, her skepticism unshaken. The director's response was final, his voice steady and unyielding. The decision had already been made. Contracts were signed. The announcement would go public in the morning. Camille rose from her chair, wrapping her composure around herself like armor. Her voice carried a controlled edge as she made it clear she had spent her entire career earning every role and every accolade, and she would not allow someone who treated acting casually to jeopardize a project of this magnitude. Without waiting for response, she turned and left, her heels striking the floor in a sharp, unyielding rhythm. Behind her, a producer muttered that things had gone better than expected. They were mistaken. They simply hadn't realized it yet. She arrived at the table read 5 minutes early, as she always did. The production office was still quiet, occupied only by a few crew members preparing the room. Camille chose her seat with intention, close enough to the director to signal commitment, distant enough to preserve her professional boundary. The calm shattered the moment Lana Monroe entered at 9, bringing with her a rush of energy and sound. Surrounded by a small entourage, she greeted the room with effortless warmth. Her outfit struck a balance between polished and casual, a blazer paired with silk trousers and worn sneakers that defied expectations. She announced she had brought coffee for everyone, an assistant trailing behind with a carrier as she personally handed out drinks, greeting crew members by name as if she had known them for weeks. When she reached Camille, she paused briefly before placing a cup in front of her, recalling her exact coffee preference from an interview years ago. The detail caught Camille off guard. She confirmed it quietly, and Lana responded with a bright smile before moving on. As the room filled, director Marcus called for focus, reminding everyone that outside attention didn't matter here. They were artists, nothing more. Camille didn't need to check her phone to know the headlines were already spreading, framing their pairing as unexpected, even sensational. The read-through began smoothly, maintaining a steady rhythm until their characters shared their first scene. Lana's voice shifted, drawing the room into something softer, more intimate as she delivered her lines with surprising depth. Camille responded in kind, her control anchoring the moment. The exchange carried a natural tension that felt alive, almost electric. The chemistry was undeniable. It showed in Marcus leaning forward, in the quiet approval passing between producers. It was exactly what they had hoped for, and it unsettled Camille more than she cared to admit. The rest of the session blurred into professionalism layered over rising tension. Later, Marcus intercepted Camille, praising the balance between her precision and Lana's spontaneity. Camille dismissed it as premature, cutting the conversation short. Across the room, Lana glanced up, her usual brightness softened into something quieter when their eyes met. Camille looked away first. Rehearsals were set for the next morning. Camille confirmed she would arrive early, already moving on. The next day followed a familiar pattern. Lana made repeated attempts at conversation, offering genuine compliments about Camille's past work, referencing specific performances with thoughtful detail. Camille responded by retreating into her script, deflecting every effort with polite distance. It was easier to maintain control this way. What frustrated her most was that Lana was good, not just competent but instinctive in a way that felt natural and unforced. Camille focused instead on the small imperfections, a missed cue, a slight hesitation, using them to reinforce her judgment and preserve her sense of superiority. 3 days later, Camille arrived early again, ready to prepare. The set remained quiet as time passed. 8:30 turned to 8:45, then 9. Lana was nowhere to be seen. Concern began to ripple through the room as Marcus checked his phone repeatedly. At 9:15, the door opened. Lana stumbled in, visibly worn, sunglasses still on, clutching a coffee as though it were the only thing keeping her upright. Her appearance told its own story, last night's exhaustion still clinging to her. Her apology barely left her lips before Camille stood, her voice cutting through the room with icy precision. She spoke of professionalism, of respect for the crew, of the responsibility they carried. Her words were sharp, each one landing with deliberate force, accusing Lana of treating the work lightly, of prioritizing distractions over commitment. Lana flinched but tried to respond, only to be silenced as Camille stepped closer, lowering her voice into something even colder. She spoke of the importance of the story, of the livelihoods tied to it, contrasting it with what she believed was Lana's effortless rise. The implication was unmistakable. Something flickered in Lana's eyes, hurt, anger, something deeper, but Camille didn't stay to witness it. She turned away, informing Marcus she would be in her trailer until her co-star was ready to work. As she walked off, a quiet comment floated through the room about the end of a non-existent honeymoon. Lana retreated to her trailer, sitting alone beneath the harsh glow of the mirror lights. The accusation lingered in her mind. She thought of the years no one had seen, the community theater, the multiple jobs, the nights spent studying performances, including Camille's, frame by frame. None of it mattered now. Her mistake had confirmed every assumption. An hour later, she returned to set, prepared despite the exhaustion. She delivered her lines with steady determination, pushing through the weight of the moment. Camille met every flaw with a cool, controlled smile, maintaining a quiet dominance that turned the scene into something combative rather than intimate. Still, the chemistry refused to disappear. Beneath the tension, something compelling persisted, creating moments that neither of them could fully suppress. Later, they sat in Marcus's office, positioned as far apart as possible. He addressed them with visible fatigue, granting them the weekend to reset, but reminding them of the core of their story. Two people finding connection despite their differences. They left in silence, walking the same corridor without acknowledging each other. Just before their paths separated, Lana stopped, offering a quiet apology, her sincerity stripped of all performance. Camille hesitated for the briefest moment, a flicker of something breaking through her control. Then she continued walking, her steps echoing sharply as she left Lana standing alone with that single, fragile pause. The next scene unfolded under dim lighting, shadows cutting across the set. It was meant to capture the breaking point of their characters, where love fractured into something raw and painful. Lana steadied herself, rolling her shoulders and grounding her breath, preparing to step into the moment. Camille watched with a critical eye, unimpressed yet attentive. Lana still lacked the refinement this kind of role demanded. Raw talent was there, undeniable, but talent alone could not carry the weight of a scene that required lived experience and emotional depth. Marcus leaned forward in his chair, grounding the moment with firm direction. He reminded Lana that this was the breaking point, where trust and connection collapsed into something irreparable. Camille noticed the faint tremor in Lana's hands, the absence of her usual effortless smile. At least she's taking it seriously. Still, there was something else beneath the surface, something darker, unsettled. The call to begin cut through the tension. Lana stepped forward, her delivery sharper than before, her voice carrying an edge that felt almost too real. Camille responded with practiced precision, her tone controlled and cold, each word placed perfectly. Then something shifted. Camille caught the irregular rhythm of Lena's breathing, the way her fingers clutched at her collar. This wasn't performance anymore. Lena's composure unraveled quickly. Her hand dragged through her hair, disturbing the careful styling. Sweat gathered at her temples despite the cool air. Her breathing grew uneven, her voice faltering as panic overtook her. The moment fractured completely. Marcus called for a stop, but Lana was already moving, pushing past the stunned crew as she rushed out. The studio fell into a stunned silence, murmurs spreading as confusion took hold. Camille moved before she could fully process why. Something about the fear in Lena's expression felt too real, too familiar to ignore. The hallway stretched empty and quiet. She found Lana in the corner of her trailer, curled inward, her composure completely gone. The polished image had shattered, leaving something fragile and exposed. Tears had streaked her face, mascara smeared beneath her eyes. Camille knelt beside her without hesitation, her voice steady and calm as she guided her through breathing. Slow, measured counts. Inhale, hold, exhale. Professional, controlled grounding. Lana followed, her breathing gradually sensing, though embarrassment and vulnerability flooded her expression. When she finally spoke, her voice was rough with apology, her words tangled with self-criticism. Camille studied her closely, truly seeing her for the first time. The cracks in the facade revealed effort, struggle, and years of unseen work. The image of effortless success no longer held. Without planning to, Camille spoke of her own experience, her first panic attack during a pivotal scene years ago. The memory surfaced with unexpected clarity. She admitted the fear, the sense of failure, the belief that everything might collapse. Lana looked at her with disbelief, struggling to reconcile that vulnerability with Camille's reputation. Camille's response was quiet, almost gentle. They had taken time, regrouped, and finished the work. The result had spoken for itself. A knock interrupted them, pulling them back to the present. Camille answered calmly, asking for a few more minutes. The word, "ouais," slipped out naturally, unguarded. She stood to leave, pausing briefly at the door. Her voice softened as she told Lana to take the time she needed, that the scene would wait. Lana thanked her quietly, her confidence replaced by something far more sincere. Camille acknowledged it with a single nod before stepping out, unsettled by the unfamiliar tightness in her chest and the subtle weakening of the walls she had built so carefully. Weeks into filming, their dynamic began to shift. A fragile rhythm formed, Camille arriving early, Lana improving her timing, their scenes carrying a magnetic energy that drew approval from everyone watching. Beneath it all, tension remained, simmering quietly. It finally surfaced during a scene that should have been simple. Their approaches clashed, Camille's precision against Lana's instinct. The balance they had briefly found collapsed into frustration. Words were exchanged, sharp and defensive, until the scene fell apart entirely. They walked away in opposite directions, leaving an uneasy silence behind. The following morning brought a heavier atmosphere. The scene ahead carried weight, their character's first kiss, a moment long anticipated. Lena's nervous energy was impossible to miss. She fidgeted, paced, checked her reflection repeatedly. Camille noticed, almost amused, offering a light remark meant to ease the tension. Lena's response carried an undercurrent Camille couldn't quite place, something deeper than simple nerves. Alone in her trailer, Lana struggled to steady herself. Beneath her composed exterior lay something she had carefully hidden, feelings she had carried long before this project began. Now, faced with the reality of the scene, maintaining that control felt impossible. When she returned to set, she carried herself with renewed focus, though the tension lingered beneath the surface. The scene unfolded under soft, artificial moonlight. Their characters circled each other, speaking of certainty and risk, their words layered with meaning that extended beyond the script. Camille delivered her lines with practiced control, though something subtle wavered beneath it. Lana stepped closer, her own emotions blending with the character's courage. The distance between them closed. Camille noticed the tremor in Lana's hands, the uneven breath, but this time it was different. Not panic, but something charged, uncertain. Lana moved as scripted, her touch light against Camille's cheek. The contact sent an unexpected reaction through her, something she couldn't immediately suppress. When their lips met, the moment shifted beyond what had been planned. What should have been tentative carried a depth that neither of them fully controlled. For a brief stretch of time, the world around them faded, the cameras, the crew, the structure they relied on. There was only the moment, raw and disorienting. The call to stop shattered it. They pulled apart, both affected in ways they couldn't easily explain. The director pushed for additional takes, capturing the moment again and again. Each repetition blurred the line further, chipping away at Camille's carefully maintained control. By the final take, her composure felt fragile. She attributed it to the demands of the scene, refusing to examine anything deeper. When filming wrapped for the day, Lana withdrew quickly, avoiding eye contact as she retreated. Camille remained where she was for a moment, unsettled, her thoughts lingering on something she couldn't fully name. The days that followed were marked by distance. Camille immersed herself in technical details, clinging to structure and control. Lana's energy shifted, her usual confidence replaced by something more unstable, her focus slipping in ways that hadn't happened before. The next major scene approached with quiet intensity. The set was closed, the atmosphere intimate, stripped down to only essential crew. The lighting softened everything, creating a sense of closeness that left little room for distraction. Marcus spoke calmly, grounding the moment. This scene wasn't about surface-level performance. It was about trust, about letting go of defenses, about stepping into vulnerability without holding back. The weight of it settled over both of them as they prepared to begin. Camille caught Lana's eye roll and felt irritation spark instantly. It confirmed what she already believed, that nothing here was being taken seriously. To Lana, everything seemed like a game. The scene opened with them entering the apartment, soaked from rain, laughter still lingering from the emotional confession that had come before. It began lightly, almost playfully, before shifting into something deeper, something heavier. Lana's hands trembled as she followed the choreography, undoing the top buttons of Camille's blouse with careful precision. Her breathing was uneven, but Camille dismissed it as nerves. Then Lana's lips brushed the sensitive spot beneath her ear, and Camille felt her control begin to fracture. The softness of the touch caught her off guard. The slow, deliberate movement of Lana's fingers against her skin felt nothing like rehearsal. It felt real. When their lips met again, the moment lost its structure completely. Lana kissed her with an intensity that erased the boundaries of the scene. Camille responded instinctively, forgetting marks, cameras, and every rule she had built her career on. The world narrowed to sensation and closeness. Then something slipped. Lana's name left Camille's lips. Not the character's name, Lana's. The silence that followed was immediate and absolute. Lana froze, shock flashing across her face. Camille felt her heartbeat stutter, then surge uncontrollably. The call to stop came, but neither of them moved at first. Camille broke away abruptly, her composure shattered in a way she had never experienced before. She adjusted her clothing with trembling hands, unable to steady herself. In 15 years she had never broken character. Not once. She excused herself quickly and left, retreating to her trailer. Inside she paced, her thoughts unraveling. The mistake replayed over and over. It wasn't just a slip, it meant something she wasn't ready to confront. For a moment she hadn't been acting at all. A knock at the door pulled her back. She asked for a few minutes, her voice steadier than she felt. The response gave her more time, but it didn't change anything. The truth lingered. She caught her reflection in the mirror, flushed, disabled, undone. It was a version of herself she didn't recognize. The days that followed were marked by distance. Camille rebuilt her walls, colder and stronger than before. Every interaction became controlled, every performance technically flawless but stripped of emotion. It didn't last. Lana finally broke the silence, frustration cutting through the tension. Camille insisted she was maintaining professionalism, but the accusation rang hollow. The confrontation lingered long after the day ended. That evening, alone in her apartment, Camille found herself scrolling through Lana's past. What began as distraction turned into something else. Old posts revealed admiration, years of it, long before they had ever met as equals. One image stood out, a younger Lana holding a worn copy of a film that had defined Camille's career. The caption spoke of inspiration, of admiration, of a dream to reach even a fraction of that level. Another photo showed a teenage Lana beside her at an event, smiling brightly, holding an autograph. Camille remembered none of it. At the time, it had been just another fan moment. Now it felt different. The realization settled quietly. Lana had believed in her long before this project existed. The next day, without allowing herself time to reconsider, Camille approached her after filming and extended an invitation dinner. Just the two of them. Lana's surprise was immediate, her hesitation visible before she accepted. The moment carried a strange, uncertain energy. Marcus observed from a distance, his amusement barely concealed. Camille insisted it was purely professional, a way to improve their working dynamic. He didn't challenge her, though his expression suggested otherwise. That evening, the knock at Camille's door felt heavier than it should have. She opened it to find Lana standing there, casual and slightly uncertain, holding a bottle of wine. Inside, the atmosphere shifted. The conversation moved cautiously at first, edged with humor and guarded remarks. Camille cooked while Lana hovered nearby, offering help, their interaction settling into something unexpectedly natural. There were moments of ease, small laughter, a sense of something forming beneath the surface. Then came the shift. A casual comment turned into something more pointed. Camille spoke without thinking, voicing an assumption she hadn't fully examined, that Lana hesitated during their scenes because of her. The words landed harder than intended. Lana's reaction was immediate, her composure slipping as frustration surfaced. She tried to respond, to explain, but stopped short. The distance between them returned, sharper than before. The conversation faltered, then collapsed entirely. Lana gathered her things quickly, her movements unsteady. She thanked Camille, but the words felt incomplete, weighed down by everything left unsaid. The door closed softly behind her. Camille remained where she was, the silence settling heavily around her. The untouched dinner sat between them like evidence of something that had almost been. She stood in the stillness, realizing too late that honesty, delivered without understanding, had undone everything. Camille stepped onto the set Monday morning and immediately noticed the shift. Lana was already there, running lines with Marcus. There were no warm greetings, no easy laughter, no coffee for the crew, only quiet focus and careful distance. The energy between them had changed completely. Their scenes that morning were flawless in execution, every movement precise, every line delivered cleanly. Yet something essential was missing. Lana performed with a controlled accuracy that should have impressed Camille, but instead it felt hollow, like watching someone imitate themselves rather than truly exist in the moment. During lunch, Camille's phone buzzed with a headline that struck deeper than she expected. The article questioned her relevance, her place, her age. It wasn't the first time she had faced criticism like this, but today it landed differently. The words slipped through the cracks in her composure, settling somewhere she couldn't easily ignore. The afternoon dragged on, each take layered with a new undercurrent of doubt. Every glance, every touch felt heavier, uncertain. She retreated to her trailer when given a break, needing space to rebuild her control, unaware that Lana had been watching her, noticing the brief fracture in her otherwise perfect exterior. Later, long after most of the crew had gone, Camille sat alone in the prop room, pretending to review scripts while avoiding everything else. Gossip, doubt, the quiet unease building inside her. Lana appeared in the doorway, holding Camille's notes. The room dimmed around them, the atmosphere shifting into something more intimate. Camille thanked her, but Lana didn't immediately hand over the papers. Instead, she stepped inside and closed the door. For a moment, she simply looked at Camille, something unspoken moving behind her eyes. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, almost careful. She mentioned the article, acknowledging it without judgment. Camille brushed it off with practiced dismissal, but Lana didn't accept that distance. She moved closer, setting the scripts aside, her earlier frustration gone, replaced by something quieter and far more disarming. Her words came without hesitation, honest and unguarded. She spoke of Camille's beauty, not as something fading, but as something constant, past, present, and future. The sincerity of it left no room for deflection. Camille felt her defenses tremble. Before she could respond, Lana pulled back, as if aware she had crossed a line she couldn't undo. She excused herself quickly, leaving the room before Camille could find the words to answer. Silence settled again, heavier this time. Camille remained where she was, the echo of those words lingering. She traced the edge of her script, unsettled by how clearly Lana seemed to see through her, and how much that unsettled her. Soon after, the studio arranged their first joint interview for a popular streaming channel known for its intimate style. The set resembled a cozy living room, forcing them to sit closer than either preferred. Camille became acutely aware of every small contact, the brush of knees, the shared space, the faint mix of coffee and perfume. After everything that had happened, even the smallest touch carried weight. The interviewer guided them through light conversation before turning to their on-screen chemistry. Lana answered first, her voice softer than usual, her words directed toward Camille with a sincerity that caught her off guard. She spoke of presence, of authenticity, of the way Camille made every moment feel real. For a brief stretch, they forgot the cameras, the setting, everything but the connection in that moment. The interviewer's amused reaction broke the tension, drawing them back. When Camille was asked the same question, she reached for professionalism, but her answer slipped into something more honest. She spoke of Lana's vulnerability, of how it invited the same in return. The admission lingered between them. The interview quickly gained attention. Viewers fixated on their interactions, the subtle looks, the unspoken tension. Camille tried to ignore it, but found herself replaying a specific moment, watching Lana's expression with a growing awareness she couldn't deny. Lana, in her own space, did the same. Even Marcus noticed, quietly pleased as the response grew. The following day, the routine was disrupted again when Lana's parents arrived unexpectedly on set. Their energy filled the room, instantly warm and unfiltered. Lana's surprise was obvious, her composure slipping as her mother embraced her tightly. Her father gently intervened, offering a calmer presence. Then their attention shifted to Camille. Recognition sparked instantly, followed by excitement. Lana's mother approached her with open admiration, speaking as if she already knew her. The familiarity caught Camille off guard. As the conversation unfolded, pieces of the past surfaced. Years of admiration long before this project. Stories of films watched repeatedly, of posters on walls, of moments that had meant everything to a younger Lana. Each detail shifted something inside Camille. What she had interpreted as hesitation, distance, even reluctance revealed itself as something entirely different. Admiration, deeply rooted and long held. The realization settled quietly but firmly. An invitation to dinner followed, offered with warmth and expectation. Lana tried to deflect, clearly overwhelmed, but Camille spoke before she could retreat. She accepted. The decision surprised even her, but it felt necessary. The moment lingered between them, filled with everything still unspoken, everything just beginning to take shape. As her parents left, the energy shifted, leaving behind a quiet that felt heavier than before. Camille could almost feel Lena's embarrassment lingering in the air. Camille broke the silence first, her tone softer than usual, a hint of teasing slipping through. Lena responded without looking up, her voice small, grounded somewhere between humor and discomfort. When she finally lifted her gaze, she found Camille smiling, not the polished, distant expression she was used to, but something warmer, more real. Camille spoke kindly about her mother, and Lana answered with fond exasperation, her affection impossible to hide. The apology came quickly, but Camille dismissed it just as easily, stepping closer, closing the space between them. She spoke quietly, her observations deliberate, piecing together details that suddenly made sense. The coffee, the hesitation, the small, telling moments Camille had misread all along. Lana's breath caught, her composure slipping under the weight of it. Camille moved closer still, her voice lowering, her hand lifting to brush a loose strand of hair from Lana's face. The realization settled between them. This had never been reluctance. It had been something else entirely. The air shifted, charged and fragile, the distance between them nearly gone. Lana leaned in without thinking, her voice barely more than a whisper, her restraint slipping. The moment shattered as Marcus's voice cut across the set, calling everyone back to their places. They stepped apart, but something had already changed. For the rest of the day, Camille carried a lightness she hadn't felt before. The understanding reframed everything, every look, every pause, every quiet moment. Lana had been seeing her not as fading or distant, but as something worth admiring, something worth wanting. That night dinner with Lana's family unfolded exactly as expected, warm, inviting, filled with stories that painted a fuller picture of who Lana was beyond the set. Her mother spoke proudly, her father adding gentle humor, each memory revealing determination and quiet resilience. Camille listened, genuinely interested, her attention drawn back to Lana again and again. There was no teasing now, only curiosity and something softer growing beneath it. The evening passed easily, laughter replacing tension. For the first time in weeks, Camille felt herself relax, the weight she carried easing in the presence of people who asked for nothing but honesty. Outside, as Lana's parents stepped away, the quiet returned. Camille moved closer, her tone lighter, teasing returning just enough to mask something deeper. Lana stumbled over her words, her usual confidence faltering completely. It made Camille laugh, a real laugh, unguarded and effortless. The promise of another dinner slipped naturally into the conversation, lingering longer than it should have. When they parted, something remained between them, unspoken but undeniable. Later, after an emotionally draining day on set, Camille found herself seeking out Lana again, surprising herself with the impulse. The invitation came without overthinking this time, just a simple suggestion to go somewhere quiet. Lana agreed instantly. They ended up in a small, dimly lit bar, far removed from the industry noise. The space allowed something different to emerge, honesty without performance. As the conversation unfolded, Camille admitted what she rarely allowed herself to acknowledge. The work took something from her, leaving her to rebuild herself alone each night. The image of glamour never matched the reality. Lana understood in her own way, sharing her own struggle with identity beneath the roles she played. The carefree persona the world loved didn't always reflect who she really was. The conversation deepened, moving past surface-level truths into something more vulnerable. Camille spoke of relationships that had never felt real, of connections built on illusion rather than understanding. It had been easier eventually to focus only on her craft. Lana listened, then answered with quiet honesty. The loneliness behind the image, the fear of not deserving success, the pressure of maintaining a version of herself that didn't always feel true. The admission caught Camille off guard. She responded gently, acknowledging Lana's talent, the strength she often overlooked in herself. Hours passed without them noticing. As they left, Lana hesitated, offering another invitation, something simple, personal, real, no pretense, no performance, just food and conversation. Camille accepted without hesitation. The word slipped out, date, and Lana immediately tried to take it back, flustered and unsure. Camille didn't let her retreat from it completely. Her smile carried understanding reassurance. She knew exactly what Lana meant, and for the first time in a long time she didn't feel the need to pretend otherwise. Camille waited in the dim quiet of the prop storage room, her eyes flicking to her watch as the seconds stretched. It was nearly time. The faint creak of the door broke the stillness, and the moment Lana slipped inside, carefully closing it behind her, the air shifted. Lana's smile appeared instantly, soft but bright even in the shadows. She moved closer without hesitation, her presence warm and familiar. Before Camille could say anything, Lana's lips found hers, the kiss carrying the weight of everything they had been holding back all day. It was quick at first, urgent in its secrecy, but filled with something deeper neither of them could ignore anymore. Camille let herself lean into it for a breath before pulling back slightly, her hand still resting against Lana's arm. She reminded her quietly that they only had a few minutes, that they were expected back, that someone might notice. Lana didn't argue. Her fingers brushed gently along Camille's cheek instead, her expression softening. She had learned to exist within these stolen moments, to make them enough, even when they clearly weren't. Keeping things hidden had never been part of Camille's plan. After that night together, after everything shifted between them, they had talked honestly. About the risks, about the industry, about how easily something real could be turned into speculation, headlines, and noise. Lana had suggested they take things slowly, to let whatever this was grow away from the cameras, away from expectations. Camille had agreed, though part of her knew how difficult that would be. They settled on something fragile but necessary: privacy, at least until they understood what they were building. Weeks passed like that, 3 to be exact. Enough time to create a quiet rhythm between them. Enough time to develop a language made of glances, small gestures, and fleeting touches no one else seemed to notice. On set they remained professional, precise, controlled. But between takes, in the brief seconds when no one was watching, everything changed. A brush of hands that lingered too long. A look that said more than words ever could. A shared smile that carried the memory of nights spent together, away from scripts and expectations. Lana handled it better than Camille expected. Beneath her easy charm and playful image there was discipline, restraint. She understood what was at stake and never pushed too far when others were around. Still, there were moments when something softer slipped through, when the distance clearly cost her more than she let on. Camille noticed. She always noticed. Back in the storage room, the world outside felt distant for a moment longer. Lana's forehead rested briefly against Camille's, both of them steadying themselves before stepping back into their roles. Somewhere beyond the door, the set carried on as usual. Voices, movement, the hum of production. Inside, everything felt suspended. Whatever this was between them had grown beyond something simple, beyond something easy to define. And though neither of them said it out loud, there was a quiet understanding forming. Something real, something fragile, and something that wouldn't stay hidden forever. Lana admitted it quietly, her voice edged with unease. Marcus had been watching them too closely, noticing things she wished remained hidden. Camille, calmer as always, brushed a loose strand of hair behind Lana's ear and assured her that Marcus had likely known from the very beginning, perhaps even from their first screen test. Still, he hadn't said anything, and that silence carried its own kind of understanding. Only 2 weeks of filming remained. After that, everything would change. Lana would leave for New York to begin another project, while Camille would be in London for a theater production. 3 months apart, separated by cities, schedules, and the absence of the film that had first brought them together. Camille spoke gently about what would come next. Time and distance would reveal the truth of what they had found in each other. Without the intensity of the set, without the constant proximity, they would finally know if this connection could survive in the real world. She admitted her hesitation, shaped by years of experience. She had seen how easily emotions could blur during filming, how scripted intimacy could feel real in the moment but fade once the cameras stopped rolling. Lana didn't waver. What she felt was steady, certain in a way that didn't resemble anything temporary. Camille agreed, though cautiously, choosing certainty only after it had been tested. They settled on that quiet agreement: 3 months, separate lives, and then clarity. The moment lingered between them before Camille leaned in for one last kiss, soft but grounding, before stepping away. Reality waited just beyond the door, and they returned to it carefully, one after the other. That night, plans were made again, simple and familiar, something to hold on to before everything shifted. Weeks later, winter in New York wrapped itself around Lana like something unwelcoming. The cold seeped through her coat as she hurried inside her building, grateful for the warmth that greeted her. A package waited for her, unexpected but carefully prepared. Inside, white camellias rested in quiet elegance. The message was simple, signed only with an initial, but it carried more weight than any long letter could. Distance hadn't dulled anything. If anything, it had sharpened it. Their messages stayed careful, their calls occasional, but beneath it all was something growing, something neither of them could ignore anymore. Across the ocean in London, Camille received something of her own. Blue irises and white roses, chosen with care, arrived at her door with words that mirrored her own thoughts. The timing felt too precise to be coincidence, as though they had reached for each other at the exact same moment without knowing it. She called without hesitation. Their voices met across the distance, laughter softening the edges of longing. They spoke lightly at first, teasing the idea of fate, of something deeper guiding them. But beneath the humor was something real, something quietly acknowledged even when left unsaid. Camille finally admitted she missed her, more than expected, more than she was used to allowing herself to feel. Lana answered with the same honesty, her world feeling colder without Camille in it. Later, alone in her apartment, Lana listened to a voice message Camille had sent. It was different from their usual conversations, more personal, threaded with something raw and unguarded. Camille spoke about longing, about trying to reach emotions that felt just out of grasp, and how real it all felt now. The distance between them had become something tangible, something that pressed against every quiet moment. That night in London, Camille lay awake, wondering if Lana had heard the message, wondering if she had said too much or not enough. Just as she reached to turn off the light, a knock broke the stillness. Opening the door, she found Lana standing there, rain clinging to her hair, a small bag at her feet, and a smile that carried both uncertainty and certainty all at once. The distance disappeared in an instant. Lana stepped forward, closing the space between them, her presence real in a way that no call or message could ever replicate. The kiss that followed felt inevitable, like something that had been building across every mile between them. She had come because waiting no longer made sense, because some things demanded action instead of patience. Camille understood that immediately. For once, schedules and plans didn't matter. What mattered was that Lana was there. Morning came quietly. Camille moved through the room with practiced ease while Lana lingered in bed, reluctant to let the moment end. There was warmth in the simplicity of it, in the quiet teasing, in the familiarity that had formed between them despite the short time. Promises were made for the day ahead. Work would come first, but afterward the city would be theirs. Not the crowded landmarks, but the hidden corners only someone who had truly lived there would know. The next day unfolded gently, London offering them clear skies and quiet spaces. Camille guided Lana through hidden gardens and narrow streets untouched by crowds. They wandered through bookshops, shared fragments of stories, and let the world fall away around them. At some point, their hands found each other naturally, without discussion, without hesitation. It felt simple, right? As though it had always been meant to happen that way. The moment held until reality intruded. A message from Lana's publicist shattered the quiet, pulling them back into the world they had briefly escaped. The photo said everything, captured without their knowledge, their closeness impossible to deny. The outside world had finally caught up to them. Camille's voice softened as she sat beside Lana, the earlier lightness fading into something more careful, more deliberate. The moment from Sabrina's house lingered between them, no longer something that could be brushed aside with humor. Lana leaned back against the couch, trying to appear relaxed, though the quiet anticipation in her eyes betrayed her. She repeated the words slowly, almost testing how it felt. Girlfriend. The sound of it carried a warmth that settled deep in her chest, even as uncertainty flickered at the edges. Camille exhaled quietly, her gaze dropping for a brief second before returning to Lana with honesty she rarely allowed herself to show. She hadn't planned to say it. It had slipped out, natural and unguarded, as if some part of her had already accepted it long before her mind caught up. There had been no calculation, no awareness of the room or the timing, just truth spoken too soon, or perhaps exactly when it needed to be. Lana studied her, the tension easing into something softer. There was no pressure in her expression, no demand for clarity, only a quiet openness. The kind that made it easier to breathe, easier to stay. The silence between them stretched, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt full, like something still forming. Camille shifted slightly closer, her voice quieter now, steadier. What they had wasn't something she wanted to rush into definitions. Not because she doubted it, but because it mattered too much to reduce it to a label before they were ready to hold it properly. Every step they had taken so far had been careful, shaped by stolen moments and unspoken understanding, and she didn't want to lose that by forcing certainty too quickly. Lana's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. The hesitation didn't hurt the way it might have before. Instead, it felt honest, real. She reached out, her fingers brushing lightly against Camille's hand, grounding the moment. Whatever they were, it wasn't fragile. It had already crossed distance, doubt, and the weight of expectations. A word wouldn't define it. Not yet. Camille's shoulders relaxed, the tension easing as their fingers intertwined naturally, like they had done so many times before without thinking. This time, though, there was no one watching, no rules dictating distance, no performance to maintain, just them. And for now, that was enough. Lana's fingers laced gently through Camille's, the gesture natural and grounding, as she guided the moment forward with quiet certainty. Camille's composure softened into something more vulnerable, a small smile forming as she spoke her truth with sincerity. She asked Lana to be hers, not as a fleeting connection, but as something real, something chosen. Lana accepted with warmth, her voice steady and full of meaning, though she suggested they keep their relationship private for a while, protecting what they had from the noise of the outside world. Camille agreed, knowing how easily something genuine could be complicated by attention and expectation. Their closeness deepened in the quiet that followed, playful teasing slipping back into place as Lana joked about Camille's relentless Scrabble victories. Camille pulled her closer, calling her out with affection, and when a soft endearment slipped into her words, it lingered between them. Lana noticed immediately, her surprise gentle rather than startled, and Camille hesitated for just a moment before Lana reassured her that it felt right. Later, under the soft glow of moonlight filtering through the windows, Camille studied Lana with a kind of admiration that ran deeper than words. She spoke quietly, wanting Lana to see herself as she truly was, brilliant, magnetic, impossible to ignore. Lana listened, her vulnerability exposed but safe, and admitted how much it meant to be seen that way. Camille's response was simple and unwavering, promising a future where that gaze, that certainty, would never fade. Time moved forward, carrying them into moments of quiet creativity and shared routines. Their lives intertwined naturally, filled with laughter, small traditions, and dreams spoken aloud without fear. When recognition came in the form of award nominations, it shook them both, but instead of division, it brought them closer. Camille grounded Lana in the moment, reminding her that success was not something to fear but something to celebrate together. On the night of the awards, surrounded by glamour and expectation, they held on to something far more important. Behind closed doors, away from the noise, Camille finally said what had been building within her for so long. She told Lana she loved her not as part of a story or performance, but as something real and undeniable. Lana answered without hesitation, her own feelings just as certain, just as deep. The world watched as their success unfolded, but what mattered most happened in the quiet spaces between public moments. When Camille stood on stage and spoke openly about love, she chose truth over caution, letting the world see what had once been hidden. Lana's reaction said everything: joy, relief, and a sense of something finally falling into place. From that moment on, there was no more distance between them, no more careful restraint. Their lives continued not as separate paths but as one shared journey. They built a home filled with warmth and meaning, a place where ambition and love coexisted without conflict. Years passed, shaping their bond into something even stronger, rooted in trust, respect, and unwavering devotion. Camille remembered the small details Lana once shared, the quiet dreams that seemed simple but carried deep meaning. On a windswept stretch of coast, she turned one of those dreams into reality, revealing a home that felt like it had always belonged to them. Lana's reaction was everything Camille had hoped for, a mix of disbelief and overwhelming emotion that spoke louder than words ever could. That same place became the setting for another promise, one that marked the beginning of a new chapter. Camille asked Lana to marry her not with grand theatrics, but with the same sincerity that had defined everything between them. Lana's answer came through tears and laughter, a wholehearted yes that echoed with certainty. Their wedding was intimate, stripped of expectations and spectacle, leaving only what truly mattered. Surrounded by those closest to them, they exchanged vows shaped by their own journey, grounded in everything they had learned and built together. The ocean bore witness as they stepped fully into a life shared without hesitation. In time, their world expanded again. A child entered their lives, bringing new meaning and a different kind of love. They created a home filled with creativity, warmth, and the kind of happiness that grows from everyday moments. Parenthood reshaped them, not by taking anything away, but by adding layers of depth they hadn't known were possible. Years passed, marked by laughter, challenges, and quiet victories that mattered more than any award or recognition. Their home became a reflection of everything they had built together: art, memories, and a life that felt entirely their own. Watching their child run freely along the shore, full of joy and imagination, they found a sense of fulfillment that no script could ever capture. Their story, once uncertain and carefully guarded, had unfolded into something real, something lasting. It was imperfect, evolving, and deeply human, shaped by choices, risks, and unwavering love. In the end, it was not defined by fame or success, but by the life they created together, a life that was entirely, beautifully their own.